Shana Meyerson here to do this week's TerraFlow. Today I'm just going to talk to you about a simple way of getting into crow. I know that with me, when I first learned how to do crow, it's like I avoided it for so long. I told everyone, I can't do it, but I had never actually tried it until one day I saw a 5-year-old do it, and that sort of nailed it for me, where I'm like, okay, if a 5-year-old could do it, I could do it, and I bet you could do it too. So I'm going to go over some fundamentals of just getting into this balance, which is pretty much the basis of all our balances in yoga. The first thing you want to do is you start with your feet close together and your knees wide apart. This is important because, now this is math, I know not everybody likes math, but diagonal lines hit the ground slower than vertical lines. That's why we measure TVs on the diagonal, because a 52-inch screen seems a lot bigger than like a 12-inch screen. Does that make sense? So with this diagonal, what I'm going to do is I'm going to creep my knees way up towards my armpits. If you have the flexibility, getting really, really low, so your elbows and hands are on the floor, helps to really sort of ignite this energy where the shin is on the tri. This is an important point. A lot of people put the hamstring or the back of the knee behind the thigh, and that doesn't give you a lot of height to lift off of. I'm going to show you how when we get really high up on the arm, it really helps you to get in. From here, I'm going to sort of pull my hands back so I sort of glue the arms to the legs. I come super high on my tiptoes and I look up. When you look down, your momentum is down. If you fall on your face. When you look up, your momentum's up. If you fall on your feet. I prefer feet, that's why I'm going to look up. If you prefer face, look down. So, looking up with my knees high on my tris and my fingers spread wide, I'm going to start to lean forward. Now here's the thing. If I keep my arms and my legs in exactly the same position, and I go 1 inch past scary, my feet will actually leave the floor without even trying. Then all I need to do is bend my knees and compact my body, and I'm in the pose. I'm going to turn sideways to make this a little bit more obvious. I come low. My shin is on my tricep. My arms scoot back. My gaze is forward, and I'm high on my toes. Here's what happens with most people. When you get scared, watch what happens with my legs. My feet want to hold onto the floor so badly that as I move forward, my legs actually scoot right off my arms. If instead I can actually glue the shin to the arm, as I move forward, it will lift me right off the floor. So watch now. Instead of letting my legs glide down, I'm going to keep them glued. All I need to do is get my elbow above my wrist, and I'll be in my position. My gaze is up always, my tush is low. Here go my elbows. Once they're above my wrist, my feet are off the floor. Notice I didn't have to lift them at all. All I do is bend my knees. In order to get into crow this way, you have to do a couple things. One is you got to be patient. We hate patience, so that's a problem. You got to be super patient. You got to try to get 2 feet off at the same time. The second thing is you do have to go a little bit past your comfort zone. But once you find it, most people get sort of like freaked out, like they get in, and it's like, oh, I'm in, and then they just pop themselves out. I call this the Wile E. Coyote effect. It's like, remember when Wile E. Coyote used to like step off the cliff and he'd get all freaked out, but only after he looked down? Like first he'd be like floating and everything's fine, but then he looks down and he falls. It's the same thing here. When you get into the pose, you gotta stick with the pose. You gotta be a little bit brave. So again, knees are high, gaze is forward, tush is low, I scoot forward, there's my lift, my feet are off the floor. Knees bend, my arms stay stable, my gaze stays forward. Now one more thing that's important when I'm working here is that when I'm working with balance, compact poses are going to be the easiest ones to hold on to. The more expansive the pose, let's say handstand, is going to be a lot more challenging. The more compact the pose, the less challenging. So watch what happens. Here's my compact pose. It's very stable. Now what a lot of people do, if I didn't bend my knees, my hips are really high. Notice how it's propelling me down towards the floor. If I didn't have great control, I'd fall on my face at that point. Not a good point to be at. So, again, tush low, gaze forward, keep the heart up and the tush low, and there's your balance. Just as a quick demonstration about arms in the wrong place, a lot of people put their arms here, behind their hamstrings. It does make it easier, more stable on the balance, but look how hard it is for me to lift. This is me really trying. I'm about 2 inches maximum off the floor. When I'm up on my shins, it automatically lifts me way up. I'd say that probably when you're working on this, don't worry so much about the feet. The feet are sort of like secondary to what's going on with the arms and what's going on with the core. Eventually, crow is a position that's done 100% arms and core. It's done with straight arms, so that when you come in, it's like moving up a fire pole. My gaze is forward, my tush is low, but again, all I have to do is bend my knees. And those are the basics for crow. Thanks so much for joining us this week on TerraFlow.